Now to an update on the death of State Trooper Kevin Trainor, who was struck by a wrong-way driver back in May. His mom filing a $20 million lawsuit against a Saugus restaurant where the driver was drinking before he crashed into Trainor. The suit alleges staff of Tribu Mexican Kitchen and Bar served Hernan Ramon Marrero 9 drinks over 4 hours, despite signs of intoxication and knowing that he would be driving. The lawsuit comes 2 days after the state's alcohol commission heard claims that the restaurant served after legal hours and provided free drinks the night of the crash. Marrero left the restaurant shortly before 2 a.m. before driving the wrong direction on Route 1 for nearly 2 miles until he crashed head-on onto Trainor's cruiser. Investigators found that he had a blood alcohol content of 0.19.